Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the tier list for patch 17.4. There's a bit of some weird things happening right now because Leona, believe it or not, Leona has been taking over the meta. Fast 9 is really good and we're going to get into exactly why. But right now, there are not too many comps in the S and A tiers. Normally, I have around like maybe 15, 13, somewhere around there, different comps in the S and A tier. But right now, we just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So the main reason why this happened is the Vanguard Fast 9 build with Leona. Vex Fast 9 is also really good right now, but they did buff a couple of the forecasts, but a lot of the reroll comps, they just are not hitting the same as they used to. But we're going to go into every single one of these comps in the SNA tier, and we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive this week just because there are a bit of fewer comps out there that you should be playing. But again, it's going to be Xayah, Corki Riven, and Dark Stars. Brawler Yi is still playable, but it did get hit by the nerfs a bit with the Psionic changes. It just means that Psionic is more consistent now, but it's worse, and you pretty much only win Psionic when you got a good Psionic item. But now that Psionic item doesn't matter as much anymore, this build is going to be dropped in down a little bit. But let's get on into the comps. Let's start off with Vex Fast 9. This one, you need a lot of gold to get into it, and you need to be winning. So two things there that are pretty difficult to kind of get. If you are able to make it there, it is a very affordable board with the complementary units of the two Nova units, Aatrox and Akali. So that means with this little setup here, you're able to spend all your other money on all the 5-cost units. Right now, the most viable carries are going to be Fiora, Graves, and Vex. Shen and Blitzcrank, while they are good as 2-stars, they don't just take over games completely. It's mainly these three that form that base. Graves is also best if you get him early. If you do not get Graves, you could play other stuff like something like this. But mainly this build is going to be Rageblade based, where you find some Rageblade item holder in the early game and then slowly get into a Vex build. It's really easy to get into this if you play something like Leblanc. Leblanc Vanguard can pivot into this because Leblanc and Vex use the same items. But honestly, a lot of people use Rageblade. Even something like a Gnar early game can use it, and then if you hit an early Vex, you could just switch into it right away. But it's always important to, again, look at the conditions section on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta, because this section is arguably the most important section on the website because it tells you when to go for each of these comps. It's not enough to just like look at the tier list and be like, oh, I'm going to go for this. Sometimes that does work, but the most important thing is to only go for it when you meet the proper conditions. So proper conditions is ability to get to fast 9 comfortably, which could mean getting some sick econ augments such as level up, going on like an 8-game win streak or 10-game win streak. That's another way to do it. When that happens, you generally are able to reach level 7 by stage 3-5 with like 40 gold. You can get to level 8 on 4-1 with like maybe 40 gold, and then you just don't even roll. You sack a couple rounds, go from 90 to 100 health all the way down to maybe like 50 or 60. Sometimes even 30 or 40, get to level 9, have like 70 gold to roll down with on level 9, hit pretty much whatever you want. That's pretty much what the recipe is with Fast 9. But again, you just have to make sure you itemize based on who you hit. So again, it could be Vex, Fiora, or Graves. And then on the God Boon round on stage 4-7, you make sure you pick a reward that gives you items for your unit that you 2-star. That's pretty much all you have to do. It's not too complicated. You could also level up to level 9 on stage 5. One thing you need to be careful of is that you need to get some frontline for your team. All the frontliners right now are 4-cost units, but Morgana really good, Nunu really good. You could even play Rammus or Tahm Kench. One of the budget versions of this comp for frontline is to run Maokai and Tahm Kench instead of Nunu plus one of the legendaries like Blitzcrank, and that's kind of another way to get some solid frontline for your team. Pretty much you just need one of the 4-cost tanks. There are just, I think, 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, there are technically 5 of them because Mighty Mech is one of the tanks, but I probably wouldn't use him in a fast 9. Pretty much the options are just like always run Morgana, and then with Nunu, you saw the initial setup on the website. With Brawlers, you have the one here. And then with Bastions, you could do what you saw on the other thing, but just add a Rammus in there instead. So it's pretty much going to be whichever 4-cost 2-star tank you hit, that's what you're going to be running, because again, there are just not many tanks in the game right now. But that's pretty much how you play the Vex build. One thing to note is that Shred and Sunder is already built into your team comp. Same with Spell Crit if you run Aatrox and Akali. That's why they're such a great budget pairing with this legendary soup type of comp. But let's move on into the next comp, which is going to be Vanguard Fast 9. This one is the new comp of the patch. This one's the weird one. So pretty much, if you ever get Leona printing Arbiter, it just unlocks this comp. I've seen people get like 4-star Leona and stuff like that. It's absolutely hilarious because you just get a ton of Leonas throughout the entirety of the game. But pretty much what you want to do is play tempo AP opener and look to fast 9. Ideal spots for this are something like, again, the 8+ win streak that we talked about before. But the difference between this comp and the other comp is that you don't care about your tank as much because you get Leona for free if you get the Leona printing Arbiter, and it could be any of them. But pretty much if you paid attention to my patch notes video that I released the other day, you'll know that you have around like a 50% chance of getting a Leona printing Arbiter every single game. So this comp can just be played almost any time. If you see it, just play anything plus Leona 3 or 4-star. So most common boards are going to be something with Vanguard. So you could do like 2 or 4. Both versions I have here are with 4 just because there are a bunch of good Vanguards out there. Like Leona, Nunu is just such a common pairing. And Mordekaiser gives Conduit with Bard and Zoe. So pretty much your core in each of these games is going to be Mordekaiser, Leona, and the Zoe whenever you play with the Leona stuff, just because they really synergize together and unlock almost everything that you need for your team. But the carries in this comp, it's again going to be AP focus. You can do Vanguard plus Vex. It's really easy to play this version if you just play Leblanc into this. But Sona and Bard are also very viable options as AP item holders. Sona really likes the double Nashers plus Jeweled Gauntlet build. Bard likes utility. He also likes pretty much full AP just because he gets a lot of mana regen from the Conduit trait. But again, both versions work. It just really depends on whether you get the Leona printing Arbiter or not, and if you also get Arbiter early in order to print her early. But if you don't get that, you can just play with Nunu instead. Nunu's got the typical double Vow mana build, and then the rest of the comp can be pretty much anything. Like right now, I just have Meepsie, Karma, and Ross in both of these comps. It gives you Shepherd with the Sona. It gives you Voyager. Voyager's shield is pretty nice with Vanguard because Vanguard gets a nice little bonus with shielding. And then it also gives you Darkstar with the Mordekaiser. 2 Darkstar is actually not that bad because it gives your team an execute. So it's actually a pretty good support trait to kind of splash into a lot of team comps. But this is pretty much how it's going to go. AP is just working really well for Fast 9 because, again, you have so many carry options. AD is a little bit different because the AD carries are like Graves, Fiora, Jhin, and they all use different items, but a lot of times APs use kind of the same thing. The only weird one is going to be Vex. But pretty much the same econ tempo rules apply. You want to try to go level 9 on 4-5 after sacking the first couple of rounds of stage 4. Or if not, go 9 on 5-1 depending on how your econ is looking. But you want to be rolling probably at least 40 gold. If not 50, 60, even 70 gold. Because if you hit everything, your health total does not really matter. You will win the game unless someone gets 3-star 4 costs or something absolutely crazy, which doesn't happen that often, right? But one thing to note is that item quality is pretty much everything in this comp. You need Guinsoo's Rageblade with Vex, and Sona absolutely needs mana regeneration. We could actually take a look at the Sona itemization right now. You'll see that pretty much Nashers is really good, Blue Buff is really good. Any of the tier items are really nice on her. But if I had to handpick my items, I'd definitely go with the Jeweled Gauntlet double Nashers build. But if you're doing more typical AP builds from building it in the early game, then yeah, Spear Shojin, Blue Buff, Adaptive Helm, all 3 of those items are going to work really nicely on her. But let's move on into the next comp. It's going to be the A tiers. We're going to start off with Stargazer Xayah. So Stargazer Xayah is back because Xayah got buffed a little bit, and right now she works out pretty decently with a mix of various frontline traits. So this version, it runs Vanguard, Brawler, and Bastion, and just runs the strong units in those comps. The reason why you do this is because Stargazers, Jax, and Nunu are both Stargazers, and they are going to be Bastion and Vanguard. So it kind of makes sense to just splash in Blitzcrank because he's a 5 cost, and Aatrox because he's going to give your team Armor Shred. So it saves you an item. And then since you're running Aatrox, you might as well run Maokai. And then since you're running Maokai, you might as well run Tahm Kench. That's kind of how this build was kind of constructed. And then in the backline, you need to be running 2 Sniper. Sniper's not that great of a trait, but because it's your primary carry, you need to build around it anyways. And Jin's honestly pretty solid. His passive is pretty good from Eradicator. It reduces everyone's armor and magic resist by, I think, 10%. And he's also just a decent carry in the late game too. And he's not that contested because all the Fast 9 people don't really run him. The only way they would run him is if they drop Karma, and then if they drop Karma, they lose Voyager. But arguably in the Vanguard builds, Voyager is a bit more useful because of the shielding that you get from that for your Vanguards. But this is going to be the standard build. Nunu with the mana items, Tahm Kench with the real tank items, Xayah double Krakens. You could do Rageblade or Red Buff. Red Buff is a bit better because it's front-loaded attack speed, and it also saves you an item so you don't have to build a Sunfire Cape. And then Jhin pretty much uses IE plus anything. Onto the Rammus build, this one is going to be with 3 Sniper. Again, you're running Jax and Nunu pretty much every single time, but in this build, we run Rammus as the Bastion instead of Aatrox, and then we run Mordekaiser as the Vanguard. Pairs up with Jhin pretty nicely. And then if you need an extra unit to add to this team comp, because you only have 8 of them, you could add stuff like Morgana, you could add another Sniper, or just add in a utility legendary. All those are going to be fine. Also, if you ever get any emblems, you could also move to a 4 Bastion build by running Poppy plus another Bastion. That works out pretty nicely. And again, items are pretty much the same. Mana items on Nunu, real tank items on your Rammus, and then double Krakens plus red buff or Rage Blade on Xayah. And then Jhin, same thing. But the difference here is that since you're not running Aatrox, you want to be running a Last Whisper or Even Shroud on someone just to get the armor shred for your team. But pretty much if you get AD Opener, if you get Serpent, Boar, or Altar Stargazer, it's going to be really good. Fun fact, if you go to teamfight.lol and go to the Explorer, go to Traits and type in Stargazer, you actually see which Stargazers are going to be best on Xayah. So we have all like the 3 Stargazers over here. We can sort by them, and you can see that like Altar does well, Boar does well, Fountain not as much, Huntress not as much, Medallion not as much, Serpent really good. Obviously Mountain is a bit biased because like if you're running Mountain, you have more than 3 Stargazer emblems. So for Mountain, you might want to look down a little bit. It's probably around like the 5 or 6 range, or maybe even the 7 and 8 range, depending on how early you ran it. But it's kind of like a nice little tool to kind of see which Stargazers work best with not just this Stargazer comp, but pretty much any of them that you look at in the future. But pretty much if you go AD and you do not have one of these Stargazers, you unfortunately have to go something else, because again, we saw the data here on some of the other ones. Just not as good, you know? Another thing you need to know is that you need to prioritize Xayah's best in slots, so get item augments if you can. There's some augments that give a bunch of bows, so that'd be a signal to kind of go for this. But pretty much at the start of the game, check your Stargazer constellation, and if you have an AD opener, then you want to be going this comp. After that, it's pretty much just autoplay from there. Put the units in the team planner, roll on level 8, stage 4-1 or 4-2, depending on your econ, and that's going to be that. One other thing to note is that if you get Titanic Hydra, it's insanely OP on Xayah, so it pretty much like bumps it up to S tier if you get it. And I also have a tier list of all the Stargazer types down here if you want to be like super sweaty about it. But yeah, if you don't believe me about the artifact items, we could go over onto artifacts over here, and you'll see that Titanic Hydra actually outperforms Flicker Blades, which is crazy if you think about it, because Flicker Blades is pretty much just like the best attack speed item, and she's an attack speed carry. But Titanic just works really well on hit for her because she hits a lot of different units. But you also have to ask the question, is it worth taking an artifact item on Xayah, because she doesn't really work with too many of them? The only ones that I really care about probably is going to be Titanic, Flicker Blades. Even though it doesn't perform that well in average placement, you got to think about what else are you going to go with it. Gambler's Blade could be good if you get it early, but then you want to swap it into something else later. Fishbones is decent, but apart from that, like some of these other ones, like you probably just don't really care too much about them. Artifact items can also go on your tanks, but the thing is your tanks are not going to be that great in this game, because for example on Tahm Kench, you're not going like 4 Brawler or 6 Brawler to really beef him up, you know? So getting an artifact item on him, while it is going to be like still nice if you get the artifact for free, the sad news is that artifacts are not free. It's going to cost you an augment, it's going to cost you like some other reward or something like that. So I don't mind taking artifact items on stage 2, but if you're taking it on like stage 4, probably want something else instead. Because if you get an artifact item in stage 2, you don't have to go Xayah. If you get nothing that's good for Xayah, you could just go a different build, and that's why I like getting artifacts in this comp, but only before I commit to it, not after, if that makes any sense. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be the build. If you get Titanic, you could pretty much hard force it, even if you are contested. But really, like, you just need 2 Krakens whenever you play this, and then some attack speed item, and then that's going to be more than enough. Next build up we have is going to be the 6 Darkstar build. This one has, again, all the different versions. We have Rogues, Snipers, and Asol. I'd say the weakest one is going to be Asol. Strongest one is going to be the Rogue one, and then middle one going to be the Sniper one. Kai'Sa is still pretty good, but you pretty much only want to play 6 Darkstar whenever you get Darkstar emblem, because the power spike you get from 6 Darkstar is pretty big, even though they nerfed it in the recent patch. You pretty much just always need it because it's so hard to get Jhin. The only way to get Jhin is he's a legendary unit, and a specific one at that. If you can't get level 9, you can't get 6 Darkstar consistently. So that's why I only like playing this with the Dark Star emblem. I have it down in the conditions down here. That way you could unlock 6 Dark Star, stabilize with that in stage 4, and then once you get Jhin, you replace Lissandra and go into your late game from there. Dark Star emblem is also really good because of the stats it gives. If we just read Dark Star, for example, obviously the emblem turns them into a Dark Star unit. You just get 45 AD and AP. Like, that's absolutely bonkers busted. If you compare it to any other item, like let's look at Deathblade. Deathblade gives 55 AD, it gives 10% damage amp. If we look at Hat, it does like around the same AP, but pretty much you just get the trait bonus plus pretty much a death cap or a Deathblade, and again, it's flexible, so it could work on either AD or AP units. So even though like you don't get the damage amp, the flexibility of this item has to be valued at something as well. So that's why it's great, because you could go into rogues, you could go into snipers, you could go into Asol, you could go into any secondary carry you want with the emblem, which makes it really, really strong because you get 18 from the emblem itself and then 45 from the Dark Star trait. So that's why you pretty much only play this with the emblem. And right now I am preferring the AD versions. Kai'Sa's still pretty good. You could 3-star her, you could 2-star her. Riven just like Starix plus a lifesteal item. Nunu in the front can be Nunu or Tahm Kench, depending on who you 2-star. Just drop mana items on him. In the sniper version, you want to be focused on Xayah. Xayah likes the Dark Star emblem plus Rage Blade or Red Buff. Your primary carry is going to be more so the Jhin than the Xayah, just because Jhin becomes the super big Dark Star and gets even more bonuses. But in the Asol version, this one's going to be more AP focused. This one's just going to be Karma Asol. If you get like a lot of AP items, you can go for this, but again, it's going to be on average a bit worse, but that doesn't mean you never play it. You just play it in fewer situations. Like if you get a ton of Dark Star units for free at the start of the game and you get a bunch of AP items, you don't really get to decide what items you get in the game, right? So then you go for this comp instead. So that's pretty much how you play Dark Star. Pretty simple comp to play. Next build up we have is Corki Riven. This one got nerfed a bunch in the last patch. This was S tier last patch, like maybe even S plus tier. But right now it's just like pretty solid. You know, it got nerfed, but it didn't get nerfed in like 50 different ways. It just got like a light nerf. But what I really like about this comp is that Corki can use like a lot of different items. He could use mana item, he could not use mana item, he could use rogue emblem. Meeple emblem's pretty good in this comp too, so emblems end up being pretty decent. And also this comp can also be deceptively flexible. There's like a 4 Bastion version. There's some versions of this that can play around with other legendaries such as Bard with Meeple. And then Riven can also pretty much use any item in the game. It just depends what combos you get them in. Obviously, like the standard Riven item's going to be the Titan's Resolve, Starix, and Bloodthirster. But something that I think is a bit underexplored with Riven is the AP builds. Like if you get a ton of rods, which normally would suck in this comp because you're mainly playing around Corki, but if you ever get like a death cap, you could just drop it on Riven and build her AP. A lot of people don't do that, and obviously I prefer this build that I have out here instead. But if you go Rabadon's death cap Bloodthirster, she's still going to do the same exact thing she already does. You could also do stuff like Rabadon's death cap Jeweled Gauntlet, Hextech Gunblade, or Hand of Justice. Pretty much any item combo can work. Titan's Resolve also, it gives both AD and AP, but if you ever get trolled in your items, like Riven can still use them. Also, another unexplored thing with Riven is Thieves Glove is really good on her. So if you ever get that, you could just save yourself 3 items, drop that on her, and then focus on getting Best in Slot Corki and Rammus, or even itemizing one of the legendaries that we talked about before. So that's kind of one of the big advantages of this comp. You need a lot of items, but you don't need like very specific ones, even if they are obviously helpful if you do get specific ones at that. But pretty much this is just another fast 8 comp. It's a pretty cheap comp considering the core doesn't use any legendaries, but it does have a lot of 4 costs. It's got 4 of them in fact. So you just go level up to level 8 on 4-2, roll down, get 2 of these 3 to 2-star ideally, save up again, decide whether you want to keep rolling, maybe go for 3-star 4 cost or go to level 9. The way to make that decision is scout around your lobby, see if your units are contested. If they're not, maybe go for 3-star 4 cost. If not, go level 9, add in a random legendary unit and call it a day after that. But another thing to note is that Meeple doesn't really matter in this comp. You just need 3 Meeple. So if you ever do need to scale into the super late game, you could always just drop Poppy and Meepsie and play a bunch of legendaries instead. Let's take a look at what one of those boards could possibly look like. If you take out these 3, you could add in stuff like Shen for Bastion. He's also going to give you this nice little sword bonus, so you could kind of surround a bunch of units with that. You could run Graves as a carry if you have a lot of extra items. You could run a Morgana. There's a lot of different things you could do here. If you get various emblems, that could drastically change your build too, and you could play around that. For example, if I get Rogue Emblem, sometimes stacking Rogue can be pretty decent in the mid to late game. If you get Bastion Emblem, you could play 4 Bastion. Pretty much whatever random emblems you get because sometimes you take like Trait Tree or whatever. You could play something kind of goofy with this board just because it is decently flexible. I'm overcomplicating this. The main board you're going to be playing is going to be the one you see right here. Just make sure you have enough items to go around on everyone. Next build up we have are the B tiers. I just want to talk about Yi a little bit. That's going to be the only comp we're going to go over. Nothing's really changed apart from it got worse. So you got to ask yourself, when should I be going this? If you get the Primordian start, that'd be one way to go for the Brawler Yi build, because Bel'Veth with the Briar and the Rek'Sai is just like the best base for this comp, because you get Econ, which is nice. You have Brawlers, you're going to go into Brawlers anyways. Bel'Veth belongs in the comp, and then Briar is just pretty much a Master Yi item holder. So that's one way to get into this. Another way is if you just have a ton of melee items, or just like a Brawler start plus some random damage dealer, that'd be another way to do this. Last situation you would go for Brawler Yi is if you're just like crazy win streaking with AD items, and then you just drop into this and just accept that it's going to be a bit worse than it was last patch. I'm honestly making it sound a lot worse than it actually is. Performance wise, we could kind of take a look at the data. We could go to the champion section on teamfight.lol, type in 4 Master Yi. His play rate is down a bit. It's all the way down to 0.85, but the average placement's still 4.34. It's not horrible, you know, but if we compare it to last patch, we're going to see some pretty big differences, especially in the play rate. He was played at 1.04 and averaging like a 4.14. So it is a big difference. Is it unplayable? No, it's just a lot more situational. But just to summarize the comps at the top again, like again, we have the Fast 9 builds. Like the Leona stuff is absolutely hilarious. Like, get the Arbiter with printing Leonas, play Vanguards, you just get like a free strong tank. Like again, a lot of the Fast 9 struggles is not getting a 4-cost tank. And with Leona, you just don't care about that anymore. You don't even, like, she's better than the 4-cost tanks at 3-star 1-cost, honestly. And if you ever 4-star her, then you have like a super duper tank. Like, it happens more often than you would think. But honestly, for either of these Fast 9s, they're both just very, very strong. Vex is a carry in both of them, but you also have Graves, Fiora, Sona, Bard, things like that. Oh yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention with the Corki Riven comp is when you play Bard, sometimes you could get Dragon, and Dragon, you just play it in this build as well. Just do the substitutions that I talked about, because again, you are able to fit a lot of different units into that comp. But if you can't Fast 9, you gotta be playing 4-cost. Any of these will do. Unfortunately, none of the reroll comps are honestly that great. If you don't believe me, we could do like a quick little data check right now. Sometimes I like just pressing 1, looking at the average 3-star placement. Lissandra is playable. I have her right after Master Yi over here, but just not as strong as in the previous patch because, again, 6 Darkstar got nerfed a little bit. We could compare here. Also, no one else is playing any of the other 1-costs right now, so it's going to be a bit worse because of that reason too. But pretty much none of the other 1-cost 3-stars are any bit viable. All the other ones are just from hero augments or things like that. If we look at 2-stars, again, it's just going to be hero augments. There's no actual 2-cost reroll comp that's like being played that often. Same thing with 3-costs. Like 3-costs, average placement isn't the whole story. You have to look at 3-star rate also, and none of these are being rerolled that often apart from like Lulu. Is Lulu viable? It could be, but she got nerfed a bit on some of her best constellations, so she's just going to be a bit more limited than she was before. Also, 4.0 as 3-star 3-cost isn't that great as an average, because getting 3-star 3-cost is not guaranteed. So if you're going for one of these reroll comps, like maybe they're averaging like 4.7 or something like that. Because if you don't get the 3-star 3-cost, you're probably averaging like a 6.0, which definitely skews these numbers a lot. Because again, 3-star 3-cost is very difficult to get. You don't get it every game unless you get like super econ augments or something like that. But the caveat is if you get super econ augments, you're going to have a lot less power on your board because you don't get combat augments or radiant items or artifact items, which make reroll comps much stronger. But that's pretty much going to be the meta read this patch. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and also feel free to join the Discord. We got a lot of people discussing TFT over there too. But apart from that, that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. I'll be coming out with an opener guide in the next couple of days. But I hope to see you all in the next video, and good luck on your climbs.